China versus US in the Taiwan Strait. Who really won the helicopter face-off? There is a video China put on full display, timed like a theater. A Chang'e Z-10, a ground attack helicopter, was filmed shadowing a US Navy MH-60R Seahawk in international airspace above the Taiwan Strait. The American aircraft was conducting a lawful naval patrol. Beijing's broadcast framed the moment as a victory. Two war machines circling above one of the most dangerous waters on Earth. No shots fired, just a silent duel on the edge of World War. This is what happened in the Taiwan Strait, and who really won the helicopter face-off. In this video, you'll find answer that will blow your mind. Chinese media says the US crossed the line. America says it didn't. Others say it was staged a flex for the cameras, maybe even an electronic warfare test gone wrong. The truth hangs somewhere in the mist between those helicopters. Let's break down what really happened. Subscribe, and let's decode the storm. August 1st, 2025. Beijing's National Parade Day. While the city drowned itself in flags and martial music, China's state broadcaster CCTV dropped what it thought was a power move, a shiny documentary showing a confrontation over the Taiwan Strait. What it really showed was something else entirely. A nervous military trying to look brave in front of its own people. At 2:30 p.m., somewhere east of the Fujian coast, a U.S. Navy MH-60R Seahawk was flying a perfectly routine patrol. The kind of operation America has carried out for decades to keep sea lanes open. But to Beijing, that was enough to sound the alarm. They scrambled a Z-10 attack helicopter, China's homegrown pride and joy, to intercept. That's when the theater began. In the CCTV version, the story goes like this. A foreign helicopter approached Chinese territorial airspace. So the heroic PLA pilot Kang Xianghui swooped in, issued warnings, and saved the homeland. It sounds grand, until you remember one thing. The Seahawk was nowhere near Chinese territory. 50 nautical miles out, operating in international airspace. The only thing it was violating was Beijing's ego. Still, Kang's radio warnings crackled through the air. You are entering China's airspace. Leave immediately. It was more performance than procedure. A military TikTok filmed for a domestic audience. The Z-10 pilot flew dangerously close, thinking intimidation would score him a medal. But what he didn't realize was that every second of his bravado was turning into American intelligence gold. See? That Seahawk wasn't sightseeing. Those odd pods on its fuselage, ALQ-210 electronic support modules, were busy vacuuming up everything the Z-10 was emitting. Radar signatures, communication frequencies, targeting modes, even engine harmonics. In 72 minutes of interception, the US collected more on the Z-10 systems than years of satellite scans ever could. China thought it was chasing away a threat. It was actually giving a masterclass in how not to handle electronic warfare. And the Z-10 itself? Let's just say it's what happens when you try to build an Apache helicopter using 1990s Russian blueprints and wishful thinking. Sure, it looks mean in silhouette, sharp edges, painted matte black, but underneath, it's a Frankenstein of imported parts. Think Toyota Camry in cosplay. While Kang's crew filmed their own heroics, the Seahawk's crew didn't even flinch. Calm voices, steady controls, eyes on the instruments. They'd been through this dance before. Every flare the Z-10 fired was recorded. Every radar lock attempt logged. By the time China's media aired its victory clip, the Pentagon already had a full 3D threat profile of the Z-10, where to jam it, where to hit it, and how long before it overheats. The Chinese broadcast showed restraint. The Americans saw incompetence. The pilot bragged he did not fire. Translation, he couldn't risk firing. Not when US strike groups were quietly watching from beyond the horizon. One Growler or Super Hornet in range, and the Z-10 would have been a blip erased in seconds. Even funnier, the man they celebrated as a guardian of sovereignty wasn't even a naval pilot. He flew for the Army Aviation Corps, meaning Beijing had to drag a land-based gunship out to sea because their navy wasn't prepared. The image of readiness they wanted to show actually proved the opposite. Panic improvisation in a command structure still figuring out how to coordinate air and sea. CCTV wrapped the whole thing in patriotic music, calling it a decisive act of defense. But anyone watching from the outside knew the truth. The Seahawk never broke international law. The US Navy never changed course. And by the time the footage aired, American analysts were already mapping every byte of telemetry that Z-10 had unwillingly donated. So, while Beijing celebrated victory, the only thing they really won was a feature slot in the next Pentagon briefing titled, "How Not to Intercept a Seahawk." What the US has to say about it. From the US side, the story is quieter, more measured, a sentinel in shadow. In the hours and days after China's unveiling of the video, the Pentagon remained largely silent. There was no point-by-point rebuttal, no declassified radar logs, no press conference denouncing China's version. This silence is not absence. It is strategic ambiguity, the art of saying nothing while still watching, listening, and reserving options. That silence carries meaning. It suggests that Washington chose not to validate China's narrative by engaging in a public spat over every detail. It preserves flexibility. The US need not admit to a specific route, altitude, or intent, yet it can continue its regional presence without letting itself be boxed into a forced response. Based on patterns of past US operations, analysts believe the actual mission behind the intercepted helicopter was routine of freedom of navigation or overflight transit in international airspace above the Taiwan Strait. The US posture has long been that the strait is international waters, or at least neutral corridor, and that its carrier groups and their helicopters operate under internationally recognized rights. China, Washington would argue, overreacted again to a lawful mission. In this telling, the Seahawk helicopter was not intruding, but doing precisely what naval assets do: projecting presence, gathering information, exercising rights. A fun and slightly ironic historical footnote. In 1986, during the Cold War, a U.S. cruiser and destroyer attempted innocent passage through Soviet territorial waters in the Black Sea and were met with aggressive Soviet naval maneuvers. That confrontation, though nonviolent, forced diplomatic tension over maritime law that lingered for weeks. The lesson then: even peaceful transits can be charged with symbolism. Yes, naval history has its own drama. Who thought innocent passage could be such a loaded term? In that light, the U.S. likely views the silence as a strategic posture. Avoid amplifying the Chinese narrative, preserve ambiguity over route and altitude, but protect the right to transit. Here is what we know, what we don't, and how both sides sculpt a story out of shadows. The known facts are relatively sparse. On August 1st, 2025, CCTV aired a video showing a Chang'e Z-10 attack helicopter and a foreign rotorcraft, claimed by China to be a U.S. Navy MH-60R Seahawk hovering in close proximity over the Taiwan Strait. China asserts the foreign helicopter closed to within 3 miles of territorial waters, then reappeared from cloud cover, approached to about 500 meters, and eventually withdrew after over an hour of standoff. The U.S. side, however, provided no public confirmation, no detailed counterclaim, and no visible radar tracks or flight logs. The only concrete data come from Chinese state media and defense industry news outlets, which by necessity are selective in what they show. From these fragments, we confront core ambiguities. Did the helicopter truly cross into China's claimed airspace? Which baseline does China use for territorial waters? Was the 500-meter distance observed or estimated? Which pilot initiated the more aggressive maneuver? Did the foreign aircraft retreat because of threat or because of mission constraints? Without third-party telemetry, we lack independent verification. The fog of peace, in this sense, mirrors the fog of war. Both hide critical detail. Both allow multiple plausible stories. China chooses to highlight the moment the Seahawk re-emerged from clouds, the bold approach, and the Z-10's measured restraint. Silence from the U.S. side becomes, implicitly, a refusal to contest those frames, or a refusal to give China the stage it seeks. By showing one version, China anchors public attention. By staying quiet, the U.S. avoids amplifying what might be a staged provocation. Each side claims the mantle of legitimacy. China, defending sovereignty, issuing warnings, avoiding shots. The U.S. exercising international rights, freedom of navigation, refusing to submit to enforced exclusion. Each views the other as aggressive. The Chinese see American intrusion. The U.S. sees Chinese overreach. The clash is not just physical, but in legal ontology. Whose map defines the seas and skies? Based on all available evidence, one cannot conclusively say China was right or the US was right. Both versions are coherent internal narratives, both consistent with limited data. It is possible China's version exaggerates closeness and intent. It is also possible the US version understates risk and intrusion. The truths may overlap, diverge, or coexist, much like two pilots flying side by side, each believing they hold the moral high ground. The technological arena. To understand what happened over the Taiwan Strait, what was feasible, what was risky, what was bluff, we must peer into the guts and wires of both the Z-10 and the MH-60R. Because sometimes a machine's capability defines not just what can be done, but what someone thinks can be done. Military dialogues, once modestly active, are now frozen or strained. Trust is low, channels are narrow. Looking ahead, we can reasonably project more of what we've already seen. More intercepts, more near misses, more video releases, more digital propaganda. Each side will refine its posture, sharpen its narratives, and test thresholds. The battle over perception will intensify. Each government will fight not just over whether a helicopter crossed a line, but over which eyes get to see and judge domestic TV, international media, allied observers, social platforms. Conclusion: the thin line between clouds and chaos. As we circle back to the opening image, two helicopters fading into mist, a confrontation unresolved. We are reminded that in the skies over the Taiwan Strait, the line between peace and conflict is as thin as the clouds themselves. The August 2025 aerial encounter between a Chinese Z-10 attack helicopter and a U.S. Navy MH-60R Seahawk was not just a military standoff. It was a symbol of the precarious balance that defines U.S.-China relations. In an age where truth itself is aerial, always shifting, always above us, perhaps the real enemy is not each other, but uncertainty itself. The ambiguity surrounding such encounters fuels distrust and fear, creating a cycle of escalation that neither side seems eager to break.